high school, I mean, there's something like 3 million square feet designated for commercial. It'd be great to build it, but we have to have the people to come here. I mean, it would be.
We already have the people here. We have a lot of people.
And by the way, I left this morning at 5:04 from my house, and I think most of you know where I live.
I think so.
And it took me, and I'll just to let you know that I'm fully aware of the same problems I experienced. Left at 5:04, got down to College Park at 6:10. So it took me about an hour to get all the way down to Hyattsville, right there, and about down the flip side of that, I left that place at 8 a.m. and it took me almost to 9 a.m. just to get back to Haiti. So there was a considerable difference as I waited in a parking lot on 495 from New Hampshire Avenue to all the way up to about the school.
And many of us have been doing this for 25 years, as you have as well, but some of us do it every day. So it's just a way of, the population exists here that can leverage this, but look at the weight that we have
And I'm
between
happy to say
residential.
even Congressman Delaney is really, I think, working hard too to find solutions to 270. And I really hope that he's able in the next year or two to come up, I hope we can convince the government that 270 should be a priority. And he's thinking about having express lanes like they do on 95 South and Virginia, all the way up. I know it's speculation, but the conversation has to start somewhere. The revenue has to start somewhere. I'm not saying I disagree with your suggestions. I'm not saying that I would be opposed to raising impact fees. I just would like to see the whole numbers laid out. I also get a little concerned, though, we have the conversation about impact fees, but then where do we have the discussion for affordable housing? Because we don't have any affordable housing around here in Urbana and places like that with these high impact, as Annette would attest to, it's something that she's very near and dear to her heart. And I agree, because as a builder, I can't build you pay $125,000 for an acre lot. You pay, if it's on well and septic, you're paying an additional, now close to $8,000, $9,000 for what we were paying for septic systems because of the upgrades, which I won't go in there. You pay for the impact fees of $20,000. So even before you get to put a shovel in the ground, build a home, you're over $175,000, $880,000. And I'm just saying that there's got to be a balance, certainly, because I also, if for as many folks in here knocking on the door saying raise impact fee, raise on impact fees, there's a whole other group of people saying, hey, we need affordable housing in the county.
And I think those are two very separate issues.
I think
As
it's
a
tied
social
together.
animal,
And
as
I'd like you to
a
answer
social
that.
service person, I will tell you I'm concerned about the lack of affordable housing. I'm concerned that we took out the MPDU issues and gave builders waivers. Take a waiver and not put part of the mix into their housing as MPDU affordable housing. That needs to be fixed. Are you willing to fix that?
And I think it needs to be looked at.
Okay.
I think it needs to be looked at, because I do think there are people that can't afford, you just can't afford to live in Frederick County. If you're a new person starting out, I understand it's very different. Now, not everybody's able to buy a home in a townhouse here in Urbana right off the bat. That's another unrealistic thing. I hear those stories. People say I'm making $43,000 a year starting as X, I don't care what you're in, and they think they should be able to go and afford to buy a house right after that. It just didn't happen. I have to one live in an apartment with my wife and had to share with a buddy in order to live when we first got married. So, those arguments don't hold water for me. I'm talking about affordable housing for people who need it that we don't have. I'm not talking for those levels. That's just figuring out that.
Right.
Anybody else?
When we talked about the difference in figures between the 260 million and the 490 million, and a clarification that I think we need to keep in mind is the higher figure, the 490 million, was 4 lane 75. If it's 2 lane 75 and improved 2 lanes, such as north of I-70, then we're talking more the 260 million figure.
So I'll just ask you, do you know what the plan is for 75 as it stands on the priorities?
No.
They
For
dropped.
the last, since 2013, when it was changed in April of 2013, and it specifically says, and I know I'm running out of time here, but it says reconstruct, widen Maryland 75 from 2 to 4 lanes. That was in April of 2013. Frederick County's traffic forecast shows a need for a 4-lane reconstruct to accommodate increased traffic or travel volume. So it was because of the developments that were being approved that they went from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. If you dig a little bit deeper, it's a 4-lane divided highway. You're talking at least with the shoulders, and the shoulders we talked about having bicycle lanes. So you're looking at least 5 lanes of road. Currently, it's 2 lanes, 24 feet, without any shoulders
I
in a lot of
didn't see that
places.
for all of 75.
Yes, ma'am. It is, that's the way it is constructed. That's the way it is described and it's been that way since April of 2013. So you're looking at a 4-lane divided highway. The division was probably going to be a turning lane of 12 feet. That's 60 feet versus 24 feet. And that's for 9 miles. It's 8.1 miles from 70 to Lewisdale. And then you've got the reconstruct, which is part of the 270 of 75 to go to 270. And you're looking at $500 million. That's the most recent bond firms provided. You talked about that you would never raise taxes. You just did. If you approve, or if you go along with all these developments and don't stop them where you have the chance to, where you do with Monrovia Town Center. If you don't, you've just raised the taxes on every taxpayer, because there's no way, even if you said 100 million is the only amount that Frederick County has to pay, these roads have to, by law, be built before the build-out of the developments, especially for Monrovia Town Center, because the ordinance says that the roads will be made adequate. And so the houses should not be allowed to be built, or the development should have been passed if the roads aren't going to be developed. There's no way that this can be built in 20 years. There's no way. And you're absolutely right. The numbers are all over the place, and that's what's just atrocious. I've asked Frederick County to provide, where did you come up with your 262, 150, 500 million? Nobody. Ron Burns hasn't provided, Blaine Young's commission never provided it. And how can you make decisions? If you don't even know what the road reconstruct is, if you don't know what the cost is, how can you make decisions about developments that are then requiring this road? And you just made a statement shortly, previously, and I hope I heard you incorrectly. You said that one of the two people that was in favor of Monrovia Town Center said they would like to see a grocery store, and I think you said that you weren't aware of all the things that were in Monrovia Town Center.
Well, meaning the commercial part of this plan, whether it was a grocery store.
Why not?
Whether it was a,
Why not? How can you then be in favor of the Monrovia Town Center when you're not aware of that? You talked about the schools being on the opposite side, or people crossing. Let me finish.
What every little thing that's going in there.
That's a pretty big
It's kind of
thing.
self-explanatory. What's
There is a
going in.
grocery store.
But you asked specifically, is there a grocery store?
Yes, there is.
Is there a, is there a 7-Eleven? A meridian of things could be put in there.
Well, let me ask you,
It's
do you know
the
where
service community,
are you
it's quite
familiar with
obvious.
the school site?
Yes.
Do you think that's an appropriate place to put a school site?
I've seen where they want to put it on, I know where the high power line's on it.
Right?
And, you're gonna say there's a study out here that has this effect, and I'm gonna disagree.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the 4-lane divided highway that's now going to go right through the middle of Monrovia Town Center, a new development. The age restricted will be on the east side where the high school is. The students will be on the west side, so now you've created a traffic problem of getting the students from the west side of 75 across the 5-lane divided highway to go through the restricted age unit to get to the high school.
Under the power line.
The next question is, in all the road studies, Route 80 east of 75. Are there any improvements for Route 80 east of 75? So you've got a 2-lane road that's now going into a 4-lane build-out on Route 80. Has there been any studies or anybody paying for that you're aware of?
The studies that were done to meet the adequate fill
APFO.
the APFO, in order to where they affect, and talking to the traffic.
So you don't-
with the county.
Right.
Have to take all that into account, and they say, okay, they do measure where the traffic is coming and going.
So they measured on Route 80 east of 75?
I will find out.
They didn't. I can assure you they did not. They did not. They were not required to.
So those studies that put 1,000 some houses on the west side of Edmund Plain, and now you're talking about another 1,250 houses on the east side of Edmund Plain. Excuse me. And they're gonna have 2 roundabouts. And there was no traffic impact study done for what that's gonna do to Edmund Plain, and you're gonna come back and say, well, their studies were adequate? How can you,
I'm gonna say that
have
I
you
have
driven
my
Edmund Plain?
understanding from talking to the folks in the county, I will retract it. They have to do their proper due diligence, and they were reviewed.
Right, but there was no study east of 75.
Was it required
By whom? Frederick County didn't require it, and I asked why.
Well, that's my question. What's in the rules and the regulations? So you
They
can't
could have asked
arbitrarily,
for-
you
Frederick
can't
County could have asked for a
arbitrarily
study.
require someone to do something if it's not what our written rules and regulations we would conduct business.
I'll ask it this way. Do you think that Maryland, or Route 80 east of 75, where the proposed high school entrance, right across from Green Valley Elementary entrance, do you think that portion of Route 80 should have been studied under the Monrovia Town Center? Do you think that road is affected by the Monrovia
I'd
Town
like to
Center?
know if it was done.
It was not. Well,
And
I'll say it this way.
I'd like to
So
verify.
you would like, so you think it should have been,
I'd like to know if it was done.
but do
That's
you
the
think it
question.
should have been?
I would like to know what our policies are towards it. I
Okay,
will find the question.
I'll go ahead and
What I think is irrelevant when it comes to that.
it's not irrelevant. You represent us, and you have a chance to
But
do
the question
something
is
about the
about
Monrovia
what
Town
the
Center.
policy is, so I want to find out what was done.
I'll ask one other.
I think that's fair, to expect me to say what it, I understand what you're saying, as you're an elected representative, but what I'm saying is, I think it's important to understand the process that existed then. Was it followed?
But you don't understand it.
Pardon?
You don't understand the process. You admitted you have no answers. Where is your heart on this study? That's the question that we need to answer.
You had a question every.
I did, and every time, these people that are sitting here, you've already admitted they are representing 99.9% of how the people feel in this county. You've only had, say, 2 people say yes, they are in favor of the Monrovia Town Center. Why is it that every time somebody asks you a question, as well as any comment that is made, it appears that you're always defensive about it, and you're not really, you're saying you're representing the people. I want to know, you hear what these people want. Why, when we go to the actual council meetings, I get surprised every time. I know what this community wants, and every time what you're voting for is entirely the opposite of what these people you're representing want. I don't understand that. Can you explain that to me?
I know the reason.
Now, wait a minute, I'm not here to start an argument.
Well, I'd like to hear your reason.
Because you've accepted developer campaign money.
No, let's not get
83%
into
of
the
your
politics
campaign
of
was
it. I just really want to
and you're a home builder.
Look,
The people have showed that the numbers don't work.
Because.
So where's your heart? Are you loyal to
I just
us?
asked you, what does that mean?
Or are you loyal to them? That means that you have a vested interest in seeing the development go forward because your campaign was financed by these builders. That's
I'm
exactly
trying to
what
figure
it
out
means.
how that benefits me.
Because you're a builder and they put you in office.
All right.
Where is your heart?
I'm still trying to figure out how the campaign donations benefit me and why you think that I'm just doing what they've, what
Because
they've
it
been.
Why
Because
aren't you
it
doing
puts you
what
in
the people
office.
asked you to do?
It puts you in office.
Well, we have.
I don't, they
these
didn't put me in
so-called
office.
other people
60% of the
that
voters
vote.
of this entire
Now,
district
let
put me in
them-
office.
Because 83% of your campaign was financed, you had joint sons
Oh,
playing
you-
on it, paid for
You
your
mean to
campaign
tell
fund,
me
that's
that,
how it works.
I got to take exception to that. I'm only saying that 60% of the people in this district
Okay,
put
if
me in office.
90% of the people in this district don't approve of the Monrovia Town Center, and you know that for a fact, are you still gonna vote to approve it, or will you side, or are you still just gonna side with
You
the
see that when you throw out numbers like that you can't prove, I
Three
have
people.
You've
to.
admitted to
You
this.
talked to
I have
three people.
admitted, she asked me a question that people asked me, and I said, yes, but if you're gonna throw out statistics, you're a smart person, you're a math person.
Doing this.
You can't tell me that
You said you
99%
heard from
of
three people,
the point is, you're saying 90% of
Eleven.
99 have seen it.
even if it's 60. If you knew for a fact that 60%, a vast majority of your constituents didn't want Monrovia Town Center, are you not gonna represent them and still vote for it because of your ties to the developer? That's a fair
Hold
question.
on, fair question. Let's just make sure that we delineate the fact that the quote-unquote ties to the developers, I don't buy that argument. The fact is, we all need to raise money in order to campaign. That being said, if you look at the entire process, and if I said to you, we go through everything, regardless of who the developers, who gave money, if they followed that process.
They didn't.
They didn't,
They
Tony.
did not, and there's, you have all the information.
We do, and there's,
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but there's about 20 reasons plus of how they did not follow the process.
and I'm not saying right now that they did or they didn't, but if they did, if the process is followed, as an elected representative, you ought not have an obligation to follow the laws and rules and regulations of this county regardless of what.
Not if it's not for the good of the people.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, well, I won't ask you this.
It's not
Two
for
things.
funding.
Am I, would, if it put the jeopardy, if it put the county in jeopardy, in any situation, were I to say, I just disagree with it because the people say no, even though the law says that, you know what, if it's this way, you have to do it.
But they
I
didn't
could-
follow it, Tony. You know that.
Well,
Here's one of the
That's
things,
like
one of the things that developments must meet is consistency with the comprehensive plan.
Building sucks tax.
Correct?
Pardon?
Yep.
And
One of the ordinances talks about that it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And it's really the historical purpose of the comprehensive plan, because like you talked about in the last meeting, with the pendulum going back and forth, you can't keep changing things, and I agree with you. And the problem with the last 4 years with the last county commissioners were, we were not involved, the public was not involved in the planning. You talk about that we need to lobby the state of Maryland, absolutely, and we would do it together. But it goes, the residents are the ones that are supposed to determine what that comprehensive plan, not one individual, not the ones that are, it's supposed to be the county. That's the way it's supposed to work,
you know.
and it has worked until the last 4 years, and we were shut out. And one of the things, the last thing, and I apologize, but I want to say because the lady that's back there that talked about the environmental issues. The impervious surface is part of the comprehensive plan, the Frederick County Comprehensive Plan, and it says that we should limit new developments in areas that are approaching 10%. In 2010, they did an estimate based on 2005 figures that said Bush Creek, Upper Bush Creek was at 9.62% in 2010. That did not include the Monrovia Town Center. It did not include 3 additional lanes on Route 75. And so there's your way to show that this development is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, therefore it should not be built. And that's exactly what the 2010 comprehensive plan did. The ordinance that was passed that said the 75 and 80 properties were downzoned because they should not be developed because they did not meet the comprehensive plan. There's a valid reason that stood up in circuit court as to why the 75 and 80 properties should not have been built. You have a valid legal reason to stop them at the county center.
So let me just add one more thing really quickly, because I gotta leave too. But for almost 3 years, I have taken petitions from thousands of people. I've been on 75 and 80. People have flocked to sign our petitions. I know the community. I know they keep flocking, saying, we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this. They've given us money, they've gotten signed. The majority of the community, I don't know if it's 80%, 65%, I don't know what the percentage is. But I can tell you, after doing this for 3 years, the community does not want this. Okay? Some growth is fine, but when you don't have the infrastructure and you're gonna bring 10,000 homes down on this part of the county, it's wrong. Very wrong. And that's why all these people have stuck with this for this long. It's because what was done was wrong. And we were hoping that you will make it right.
Bob's gonna have the last comment.
You know, somebody out here this evening mentioned that, you know, the answer might be out here. You know, I don't know what the answer is. I'm from Mount Airy, I'm way at the other end of the county, and we're concerned about the development too and how it's gonna affect us. We don't have any idea. You know, there's 40,000 homes going up between here and Mount Airy. Tony's been nice enough to come to some meetings and explain himself. And I want to thank Tony for that, and I want to thank you all for coming here and keeping this dialogue open. If you're not talking, the great idea never happens. Just keep talking, just beat this to death, because it's worth it. It's worth it to you, and it's worth it to Tony too. And he does support what you do, because I get a chance to talk to him one-on-one.
Thank you all.
Not so nice.
When I